Mindset Mavericks, your blueprint for bold thinking and boundless growth.
Do you feel like your body's working against you? Maybe you're exhausted no matter how much you sleep, struggling with bloating, mood swings, or painful periods. You might have tried everything, but nothing's really working. What if I told you the missing piece isn't just in your diet, but it's in your mindset? Today, I'm joined by Julia Chein, a registered dietitian who helps people by addressing their gut, brain, and hormones in a whole new way. So if you're feeling stuck in your health journey, this episode is for you. So welcome very much to Mindset Mavericks. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
What I'd love to do is dive into your background really and find out why you became a registered dietitian. You've got a bit of a story that led you into this path. So can you tell us a little bit about how and why you got into dieting and dietitian?
Yes. So my story is that since I was young, my parents and my family, we never really took nutrition and health very seriously. And it's so important when it comes to just feeling good in your body. And over the years, I remember when I was younger, I used to have a lot of health problems. I would always get sick. I had eczema since I was born, even with my sisters and stuff, lots of inflammation and chronic illnesses that used to happen often when we were younger. And so I decided to learn more about nutrition and why that's so important in healing your bodies and just giving your body what it needs to thrive. And that's when I discovered that I could actually become a registered dietitian and help people with their chronic symptoms and feel better in their bodies. And at the same time, when I was studying to become a dietitian, eczema symptoms actually got worse. So I went through something called topical steroid withdrawal. Basically, when you overuse topical steroids, which is the main treatment for eczema, and you apply it on your skin for a long period of time. For me, because I've had eczema all my life, I use the topical steroids for 10 to 15 years. And when I stopped using it one day, my skin got so much worse and I went through this whole drug withdrawal. And this was happening while I was in school. And that really opened my eyes as to the medical system and how we were not informed, unfortunately, as patients with eczema, that, there are serious side effects when it comes to certain medications like topical steroids. And so when I became a dietitian and finished schooling, I was going through all these health problems and my skin was flaring up. And that's where it further drove my passion to complete my degree and start helping people specifically with not just eczema, but chronic inflammation, and educating people how important it is to fuel your body and know that you don't have to rely on medications to heal your body or to manage your symptoms. Obviously, there's a time and place for medications, but there's a holistic way to address some of these issues.
Okay, you mentioned that one of the key treatments for eczema is these topical steroids. At what point did you realize that was it overusing it, or was it just due to the prolonged period of time that you were using it?
Yeah, so I used it for about 10 to 15 years. Can't exactly remember the timeline, but I didn't know that I was actually addicted, like my body was addicted to the topical steroids until one day when I went to go see my naturopath because I wanted a holistic way of healing. She recommended, maybe we can try healing your gut and do, some of the other ways, natural alternatives to healing your body and see how your skin does. And at the same time, I was like, okay, maybe I'll just use topical steroids a little bit less while I'm trying to start my healing journey. And then when I noticed that I was using it less, my skin got worse. And then that's when I figured out, okay, this isn't eczema anymore. It's something more serious.
Yeah. I know we're going to delve into a lot of the types of things that can be treated through the diet. But one of the things I'm interested in, I know you very much promote the change in mindset that should be taking place. And certainly you've said that shifting your mindset transformed not just your health, but your business and life. So can you talk us through what that turning point was for you?
Yes. So that turning point happened actually, I remember the day. It was January, just right after the new year of 2018. I was 3 years into this medication withdrawal and I was still experiencing quite severe symptoms. At that point, I've done the cleanses, I've done the detoxes, I've done the juicing, I've done all the nutrition and the supplements, and it just wasn't healing me as fast as I wanted to heal. And it was that moment in 2018 where I realized that I actually didn't believe I could heal for 3 years. Every treatment that I've done, so I've always skeptical about it. Oh, is it going to work? I think I'm going to have to live with this skin condition forever. And I had a victim mindset. I was like, why is this happening to me? It's not fair. And I just didn't have a good outlook, which makes sense because when you're going through something, when you're going through eczema and especially topical steroid withdrawal, it takes away from your life. You can't move. It's debilitating. And so, it's very hard to have a positive mindset. But that moment in 2018, I decided that this next practitioner I was going to see was going to be the one that's going to help me. And I just made the decision. I was like, you know what? I'm no longer going to not believe in myself and my healing. And I'm just going to take action and actually reframe the way that I see my healing.
Yeah, I think a lot of people resonate with what you've just said. I think when you're stuck, whether it is going through a very stressful period, it's grief, or like you say, struggles with eczema, people can get into that mindset of this is just my life now and fall into that trap and, like I say, victim mentality for it. But when things are feeling impossible, how do you go about shifting your mindset? I know you've just said that you've made that conscious decision to think, no, I can improve. But what are some of the tools people can use to switch their mindset?
Yeah, there's a couple things that I love doing. My favorite is actually journaling. And these are some tools that you can do on your own, like free tools. For me, it's always been journaling because I'm someone that overthinks a lot. And when you have a lot of overthinking thoughts, they need to go somewhere. If it's not going somewhere, it's going to stay right here. And that's a problem with a lot of people is we overthink and we have negative thoughts, disempowering thoughts, and we get in this spiral of like negativity because our brains are just meant to focus on the negative things, right? So what I like to do is just write down all the thoughts that I have in my journal, and I like to challenge my thoughts. Let's say there's a thought where I'm like, I'm never going to heal. That's a very common thought for people who are dealing with chronic symptoms and inflammation. And I challenge that thought. I ask myself, okay, is that actually factual? Is that true? Because a lot of the times we have these thoughts that actually aren't true. They're just thoughts that appear, right? So I challenge a thought and then ask myself, okay, is it true or false? If it's not true, how can I show and prove to myself all the reasons why that I am healing? And it's like doing that every single day, reframing. And that helps with shifting your mindset as one tool.
Yeah, it's so easy to think that whatever your thoughts are is fact. And it's easy to fall into that trap and think whatever you believe your thoughts to be true. And actually, the great thing about being human is that metacognition. You can have thoughts about your thoughts. You can analyze your thoughts. And it is great to get it out on paper. And rather than ruminating on it, sometimes it's just that process of writing something down. You can even just screw it up and throw it away and it's gone sometimes. So I think journaling
Exactly.
is great. So I want to talk a little bit about the gut health connection and why fixing your stomach can fix everything. So I know there's a lot of things in the media, on podcasts and all over currently about gut health and how it's the root of so many issues like energy, weight, even your skin. So what is the connection between your gut and your overall health?
Yeah, so your gut is linked to everything. It affects your immune system, your hormones, your skin, your did I say immune system already? Yeah, immune system and your overall health because 80 to 90% of your immune system is actually in the gut. Your gut produces different hormones, and your hormones are needed to balance your hormonal system. But not only that, it helps with skin healing, it helps with improving your immune system. And so a lot of the chronic diseases that we experience nowadays comes from the gut. When you feed your gut with the right foods and the right supplements and you change your lifestyle, a lot of people start seeing healing with their eczema, with their psoriasis, acne, their energy levels gets better. If you have a lot of gut issues, constipation, bloating, we see a lot of chronic dysbiosis, so people who have imbalance in their gut from, multiple different root causes and reasons. But when you start addressing those things, then with the right tools and the right strategy, then you'll start to notice a lot of these inflammatory symptoms that people experience nowadays actually can heal without relying on medications like steroids or antacids and things like that.
Because we're talking about how your gut is linked to everything. So if somebody's suffering from a health issue, how do you differentiate whether it is originating in the gut or if it is from something else? What are some of the things you can be looking out for?
Really good question. Yeah. So let's say someone comes to me, I'm going to use eczema as an example because most of my clients are eczema because of the gut-skin connection as well. I usually conduct a clinical assessment and I'm looking at their entire medical history. I'm looking at their health ever since they were young up until the age that they are today. I'm looking at their gut symptoms, their hormonal system as well. And so when I do an assessment and I look at all these systems, then it gives me an idea of why they're experiencing eczema. Okay, is it because they have been eating a lot of processed foods in their diet? Is it because their nervous system is dysregulated by looking at their lifestyle? Is it because they have a lot of dysbiosis going on? Let's say I've identified candida, which is a yeast infection that oftentimes people with eczema have, and there's different symptoms that we are able to determine with candida. And so it's like a clinical assessment with a holistic approach, looking at their lifestyle, their emotions, their thoughts, and how that can manifest as a skin condition like eczema. So that's one example.
Yeah, and one of the things I'm interested as well with the gut is there's a lot of things getting online about probiotics. So firstly, do they really work? And is it a kind of fix-all solution?
So yes, it's a very common question, and I get a lot of people message me and they say, "Oh, I'm on these probiotics, but it's not working." And I'm like, "Well, of course it's not working because it depends on so many different things." There's different. If we're just speaking about probiotics itself, there's so many different brands, different quality. Are they professional grade? Do they have the right strains? So important when you're choosing probiotics is selecting the right strains to actually help what you need help with. And then not only that, let's say this person, if we're using an example of someone who has a lot of stress in their life and their root cause is actually stress, if you take a probiotic, it's not going to help, right? Because what they actually need to work on is regulating their nervous system. And at the same time, yes, take a good quality probiotic, because we also know that when you nurture and heal the gut, you also heal the mind, because the gut and the brain are connected. So it's not like one thing you can do, it's like the whole picture.
In terms of there being so many different things it could be stemming from, that's going to be quite difficult to solve during this particular episode. But there are mistakes that people are making regularly to do with their gut.
Yeah, I would say the biggest mistakes I see is thinking that the supplements can just fix everything. Lots of people take all kinds of supplements. I've seen clients come to me with 10 to 15 different supplements.
Wow.
And they ask me, okay, why is my skin not healing? Why am I more constipated? And their symptoms actually worsen with these supplements. So they take too many supplements and they think that's going to help them. But we also have to think about, are these supplements actually addressing your root causes, or you're just taking them and it's, not really doing what it's supposed to be doing? And supplements have side effects just like medications do. And so if you're taking 10 to 15 supplements and your liver detox pathways or your digestion is off, it can cause more symptoms and overburden your body.
Yeah, it's quite intriguing about the whole supplement side of it. You kind of think if you're taking what looks like the right supplements and you think you're doing the right things by taking all these supplements that might actually be fixing those issues. Does that really mean then that you can't fix a bad diet just by taking those supplements?
No, you can't, because a bad diet needs to be fixed by changing your diet first. I always say whole foods first before you start supplementing. Supplements are supplementary, right? So we take it to support what our body is lacking. That being said, the food nowadays, it's not as nutrient dense as it used to be way back when. Our soil's depleted. There's a lot of pesticides and GMO foods. So we don't actually get enough nutrition in our food. Also depends on where you live. The quality of food is very different too. So I believe that, if you are experiencing chronic inflammation, diet alone is often not enough and you do need supplements. It's just about being intentional with what kind of supplements you're taking.
What is the link between, for example, stress and skin conditions?
Oh my gosh, huge, huge link. I would say 95% of the clients I see with eczema have stress as their biggest root cause. There's a huge connection between eczema and the nervous system. And for those of you listening who don't have eczema, I also see it in people who have chronic gut issues, PMS, hormonal imbalance. So it's not just exclusive to eczema, but I do see a lot of the nervous system being highly dysregulated in my eczema patients. And it's hard because, I think in the world that we live in, we're told or taught to grind, to work, don't take breaks. You have to be successful. You have to go to school and finish a degree. And then you spend your whole life trying to pay off your student loans and buy a house and all these things. And so we live in a very highly stressed world. So it's very normal to see people with dysregulated nervous systems and that showing up as eczema as a symptom.
Should you be focusing on the stress that they're experiencing? Should you be focusing on the gut? So, like you say, there's quite a connection between the two, but what should be the primary focus?
Yeah, I would say we would focus on whichever is causing the most discomfort and the most symptoms. So if I look at my client and we determine that all of our symptoms rooted in stress, then we would focus on mindfulness practices. Yes. And then, for example, if someone is experiencing chronic constipation because their diet is not looking great, then we would focus on the diet piece. So looking at kind of what are the main issues that are causing these symptoms and starting from there.
Knowing that the gut is such an integral part to overall health, are there particular foods that you think everyone should be eating to try and increase the health of their gut?
Yes. So your gut loves fiber and it loves variety. So if you want to heal your gut and improve your health, it's really important to get lots of fiber in your diet. Fiber helps with your digestion. It feeds the good bacteria in your gut, which you need in order to heal from symptoms, but also just because your gut is linked to all the other symptoms. When you feed your gut, then everything else heals as well. I always say, if you don't know what to eat, think about protein, or if you don't kind of know what your plate should look like, just think about the rule: protein, fats, and fiber. If you get enough protein, enough fats, and enough fiber in each of your meals, then that will give enough nutrition and nutrients in your diet.
Yeah, I did notice this one in particular macro, which is kind of absent in what you've just said, in the carbs. What role do carbs play in gut health?
Yes, carbs. Carbs are important too. So you need carbs for energy. If you don't eat enough carbs, then you're not fueling your body with enough energy. So, a lot of people think, oh, carbs are bad for you, but it's really not. It's about choosing the good quality carbs. Obviously, we have to avoid refined carbs, things like white pasta, white rice, be a little bit careful with how much you're eating and try to focus more of the complex carbohydrates. Those are the whole grains: brown rice pasta, whole wheat bread, things like that will give you enough. You get a lot of fiber in complex carbohydrates, which fiber again helps to fuel the gut and the gut microbiome.
Well, I'd love to move on. Just again, we'll run through some of the things that people do experience, and one of those is severe periods. So, can you tell us a little bit about the relationship between gut and PMS and hormones, and how that can affect periods?
Yes. So when it comes to PMS symptoms, premenstrual symptoms, a lot of women actually think that these symptoms are normal, but they're not, right? I think, again, we were taught in some time in our life where it's like, oh, if you have your period, you're going to have bloating, you're going to have, heavy periods and pain, but all of that's actually linked to the imbalance in your hormones during that time period. So in my clients, what I've seen is when they have PMS symptoms, they're also having other inflammatory symptoms that come up during that period. So they get a lot of eczema flares 1 week before their period. This happens because your estrogen levels, which is a hormone, rises a week before you have your period. And then if you have a healthy digestion and you have your detox pathways are working efficiently, then you should be able to excrete and detoxify the estrogen out of your body through your stool and through your liver. However, if you have poor digestion and your liver organ is not working optimally, then the estrogen stays in your body. When estrogen stays in your body, this is then results in estrogen dominance. And this is when inflammation starts to happen. The PMS, the bloating, the pain, the eczema flares. And so there's a huge link between your hormones and these symptoms. And in order to heal that, you have to start addressing the estrogen dominance, which starts from healing the gut. When you heal the gut and you have good, healthy bowel movements, your liver is working efficiently, then it's going to be able to get rid of the excess estrogen. And then from there, you'll start to notice every month, your period, you don't have symptoms.
Yes, it's one of the things I'll never really understand it, obviously being a man, but with half the population suffering from PMS from periods, it's good to know how we can try and help those people who are suffering with it. So how do you actually identify that? What's a normal period and what's not normal?
So everyone's period is very different. Usually the cycle is between 28 to 35 days. But what I tend to look at is how they feel around their period. So if they're experiencing all these symptoms, then that's a clue that we need to start addressing. Okay, why is it that she's or this client is experiencing the symptoms? You have to look at the gut. Okay, is she digesting well? Is she having proper bowel movements? The other thing that I didn't mention is nervous system. A lot of people with nervous system dysregulation who are highly stressed are also the ones that have PMS, because when your nervous system is dysregulated, you have high cortisol, and high cortisol can cause overall inflammation in the body and tend to exacerbate symptoms like PMS. So we start addressing the gut using the right foods, the right supplements, trying to get their detox pathways working. And then we also work on the mindfulness nervous system piece as well.
If somebody's listening and they feel like they do suffer with severe cramping and bloating, etc., and they want to try and start healing their gut, and you've mentioned a couple of times about detox pathways, what are some of those first steps that somebody should be doing to try and heal and detox their gut?
Yes. So looking at their diet. So are you getting enough protein? Trying to aim for at least 25 to 30 grams of protein every meal. This also depends on your weight as well, but for the general audience, we'll say 25 to 30 grams of protein every single meal. Are you getting enough healthy fats? This supports your hormones. The healthy fats usually come from foods like fatty fish, salmon, mackerel. You also get healthy fats from plant-based foods as well. So avocados, walnuts, using flax oil and olive oil in your cooking. Flax oil, is more for, can't really cook with flax oil. It's only for salads, for example, but you can use olive oil and avocado oils for cooking. And that's going to help you with getting enough healthy fats. And then of course the fiber is going to come from mostly vegetables, fruits, and beans and legumes. If you can aim for, we usually say 2 handfuls of fiber at your meal, then that's going to help with your digestion and balancing your hormones by getting rid of that excess estrogen if that's something that you have.
So what is the issue with processed foods, and how do you classify a processed food?
Good question. So processed foods, I think a lot of us know it doesn't have any, it doesn't have any nutrition that actually helps us with giving our bodies what it needs to thrive and to prevent some of these symptoms that a lot of us experience. You have to be able to eat more nutrient dense foods. Processed foods like, deep fried stuff, so fries and chips, if you're eating heavy fat meals like burgers and pizza and all the good stuff, right? It doesn't give us the fiber that we need to in order for a gut to thrive. A lot of them are, if you look at the ingredients of some of the ingredients they use to produce these foods, it's all chemicals. It's words that you can't pronounce, right? Versus whole foods, you pick up celery. It's just celery. You can't add
Yeah.
anything else to it, right? So processed foods just have a lot of added excess fat, excess sugar, preservatives, ingredients that actually damage our gut microbiome. There's tons of research around, for example, aspartame affects our gut microbiome. So does glyphosate, which is the herbicide that's very commonly used in mostly the United States.
Okay, one of the other things that I've seen a number of times has been recommended to help out and balance hormonal imbalances is the pill. So I'd like to ask your thoughts really about what people should know about how the pill affects your gut and your body long term.
So the birth control pill is often used to obviously prevent people from getting pregnant. But not only this, a lot of them they're prescribed because it helps to regulate your period. It actually helps with people who have severe PMS and symptoms around their period not have those anymore. But the long-term consequences of the birth control pills is that it does affect your gut microbiome. It can cause more of that bad bacteria to grow versus the good bacteria that we need. I've seen a lot of cases where people are on long-term birth control pills tend to have pretty bad dysbiosis going on, especially the yeast that I mentioned earlier, which is Candida. So we really have to be careful with birth control pills because while, there's a time and place, and if you need to take it to help with alleviating your symptoms, we need to figure out the root cause of why you're having these symptoms in the first place. They're band-aid solutions. They're band-aid solutions. So it doesn't get to the root cause of, why you need it in the first place. Not only does it also affect your gut, it depletes nutrients from your body as well. So B vitamins actually get depleted over time when you take the birth control for too long.
And just speaking about some specific foods that may help or hinder during the menstrual cycle, are there foods that we should be focusing on and trying to get more of during that time, or ones that we should be avoiding?
Yeah, so I would say try to get as much whole foods as possible, focusing again on the protein, fats, and fiber, and getting lots of different minerals. So magnesium is really good to include into your diet during your period. You get magnesium-rich foods from foods like dark chocolate, dark leafy greens. So incorporating some of that can be helpful during your cycle. Again, the fiber piece, so different colors of vegetables. I'm focusing on prebiotic foods. So prebiotic foods are foods that feed the good bacteria in your gut. And there's certain vegetables that have more of that. For example, garlic, onions, asparagus, cruciferous vegetables. Those are really good foods to include.
And it's probably my naivety now, but in terms of iron, is that something, again, that you would need to be trying to increase during the menstrual cycle? So I can see you starting to nod your head and agreeing already there.
Yes, I just realized, wait, I missed one nutrient. Yes, iron is very important as well. A lot of women are deficient in iron. Iron deficiency is very common in women. And so it's important to get some of those iron-rich foods, which mostly come from meats, especially red meat. You can also get iron from plant-based foods as well, for example, like tofu. And to add on to that, it's really important for the women that are listening to check your iron levels because sometimes the range for the iron that you're supposed to be in is quite large. And usually when your doctor checks it and you're within the range, but you're in the low end, they tell you you're fine. But then you're like, wait, I'm not fine. I'm so tired all the time. I don't have good energy levels. So it's important to check your iron levels, make sure they're within optimal range. And if they're not, then definitely need to consider an iron supplementation.
Can you explain what the difference is between prebiotics and probiotics?
Yes. So prebiotics are the foods that feed the good bacteria. So the bacteria in your gut needs food in order to thrive. And it gets that from prebiotic fibers, which comes from the certain vegetables, like I mentioned, the garlic, the onions, asparagus. Probiotics are actually live bacteria. So they're the bacteria in your gut that are moving right now as we're speaking, trillions of them in our gut. You can get more of that into your diet through probiotic foods. So probiotic foods includes foods like yogurt, kefir, tempeh, which is the fermented version of tofu.
Thank you. So I want to move on a little bit to fatigue and burnout, and I think that's something that a lot of people are suffering from, particularly people who are running their own businesses. They're working all day, every day, into the evenings, Saturdays and Sundays, and just feels like it never stops. So what is it that people can do to try and stop themselves feeling burnt out all the time?
I can really resonate this first of all. Sometimes it's hard to even really know that you're in burnout. That's something I noticed with my first experience of burnout. I physically I wasn't feeling any symptoms. Like I just worked, 12 hours a day. It was like at first it was the physical symptoms I didn't see, and then later on it was like 4 or 5 months into me grinding that I started to notice, okay, wait, I'm more tired than usual. I feel like I'm very irritable. I'm getting dizzy when I stand up, and that's when I realized, okay, I think I've been working too much. So your question as to
So yeah, I think there's definitely you've got to address how much you're working, try and cut that down as well. But in terms of diet, is there anything in particular that we should be doing which is any different from what you've suggested? I know you said about lots of kind of raw, unprocessed foods, whole foods, but is there anything that people should be focusing on if they feel like they're drained and lacking energy?
yes, so blood sugar balance is really important. As business owners, we tend to forget to eat. We're too busy in our projects and we skip breakfast, we skip lunch, we skip dinner. So the other thing that's really important in addition to getting whole foods is to eat regularly so that you can balance your blood sugar. This what that looks like is making sure that you have a breakfast and you're not waiting until dinner, and you're having, a balanced meal pretty much throughout the day, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. That way your blood sugar levels stay stable and you're not having ups and downs and crashing. Because if you're crashing, then you're going to be exhausted and you're not going to be able to perform in your work.
And it's kind of connected to it. I think a lot of people who are going into burnout end up eating late at night. It might be getting to midnight and having a big meal. Does it matter what time of day that you're eating, or when it is in relation to your wake and sleep cycle?
Yeah, it's more, I would say, in relation to your wake and sleep time. Ideally, for the best performance and the best for your health, it's better if you sleep before 11. You don't want to sleep too late. And waking up at a good time, getting 7 to 9 hours of sleep, and then you have your breakfast within an hour. Your body really likes routine. Sleeping at the same time every night, waking up at the same time, and eating your meals relatively the same time every day. It's best to not eat too late because your body needs to digest everything that you've eaten throughout the day. And a lot of the healing and the detoxification starts at nighttime. So if you're not sleeping until late and you're eating late, then you're not really giving your body its opportunity to rest and recover and allow those nutrients to be used in the way that we want it to be used for our bodies.
And one of the things I did notice when you were speaking a second ago is about the having regular meals. Something I'm seeing a lot of is fasting. So what are your views on fasting?
Yeah, so I think fasting, just like with any type of other diets that people go on, is it depends on the person. There are research that shows that fasting helps with losing weight, but for people who have chronic inflammation and symptoms, which is kind of what we've been talking here mostly in this podcast, it's better if you try and get more nutrition into your diet. And the problem with fasting is that if you're fasting, you're not eating, right? If you're not eating, you're not getting the protein, the nutrients, the vitamins and minerals in your diet that you need in order to heal. So the answer to that, time and place, I would say, if you feel better when you fast, because there are some people who when they fast, they feel better and their skin actually starts to heal. But other times it might not be like that for people who actually are nutrient deficient, for example, and they need to have proper meals.
And I think one of the things talking about burnout still is people rely a lot on caffeine. So I think you see it in every workplace across every country probably is people will just grab a coffee, try and get a spike in energy and think that's solving their energy levels for the day. But is caffeine a good thing? Is it a bad thing? Can it be categorized like that?
I wouldn't say it's good or bad. I think it depends. It definitely depends on how your body perceives the caffeine that you take. For example, what I mean by that is if you are drinking caffeine because you're drinking coffee because you actually can't function without it, then that is a red flag. That tells me that, there's something going on with your adrenals, which is the organ that regulates your cortisol levels. And what caffeine does is it actually can raise your cortisol levels if you rely on it and cause you to be in this like constant fight or flight, which then in that case, you should probably not be drinking coffee because it's going to negatively impact your body versus if it was someone who, for me, I drink coffee every day, but I don't drink it because I need it. It's like I like the taste and I always make sure I have only 1 cup a day because if you do too much, it's dehydrating and it affects your nutrition as well.
Yeah, I completely get it. It's quite easy to get hooked on it. So I'm sure there's a lot of people who are hooked on it, but want to get the same kind of feeling through a different method. Is there a good alternative that you'd recommend?
Yeah. So if you're someone that's trying to wean off of coffee and it's hard for you to completely cold turkey, you could try switching to decaf. That's a little bit less caffeine in the coffee. Or you can try switching to matcha. That's a good alternative to coffee. And then you can slowly work towards tea, for example. So you could do coffee and then matcha and then maybe switch to tea. There's also some really good coffee alternatives as well. So there's no caffeine in the actual product, but it tastes just like coffee. So if you drink coffee because of the taste, that could be something you want to look into.
Thank you. I want to talk a little bit more about stress because it does seem it's unavoidable for most people in daily life. And we've talked about how your gut health affects stress, but how does stress affect how your gut's functioning?
Great question. So, your gut and brain are in constant communication, and it's through a nerve called the vagus nerve. So, the foods you eat and the supplements you take and your lifestyle affects your mind, just like how your mind affects the gut. So, if you have a stressed mind, you're going to have a stressed gut. And if you have a stressed gut, you're going to have a stressed mind. And so, if you have a lot of stress in your life and you have negative thoughts, things like that, then it's going to impact your gut health and the way that you might experience bloating, constipation, diarrhea as well, and other chronic gut issues, dysbiosis, more of the bad bacteria. And so those are some examples as to how stress in the body can affect the gut. And then also too, when you have high stress, you have high cortisol, right? Like we mentioned earlier. And when you have high cortisol levels, your body actually goes right into a fight or flight response. And so when your body is in fight or flight, it actually thinks you're running away from a bear. And it physically feels like you're running from the bear. And so when you're trying to heal your gut, but your body's in fight or flight, it's not going to be able to heal because it's not in the right state.
Yeah, and ultimately that is what we've been talking about through this whole podcast. It's about healing, trying to get to an ultimate place with your health, whether it's any conditions really, which is a lot of it linked to your guts. Is there one thing in particular that you wish people knew about healing?
Yeah, I would say practicing a lot of patience and having a lot of patience with healing. When you're healing from a symptom that you've had for many years, unfortunately, we can't reverse them quickly. Eczema is an example. A lot of people have eczema for years. And so when you're healing on your journey, it's trusting your body and knowing that what you're giving it to heal, nutrition wise, supplement wise, mindset wise, is working, whether or not you feel it right away. And it's just continuing and being consistent and not forgetting about how important the stress piece is because we tend to neglect that and we tend to focus on like, okay, how healthy should my diet be? Should it be organic and vegan and what supplements should I take? Sometimes healing is just the basics and remembering that.
Yeah, I think patience, great virtue. It's so easy to jump from one thing, try it for a week and think, oh, it's not working. It's not done anything for
Do the
me.
next
Jump to
thing.
something else. And it's just a never ending cycle of trying something different, never actually giving it time to like say, heal.
For those of you who are on your healing journeys, give yourself at least 6 months of consistency, which I know sounds long, but our bodies need time to adjust to the things you're doing.
But no, I think that's reassuring to hear as well, just because, like I say, if you're not noticing any differences, it can be easy to think it's not working, but actually, just take that time, let all the new practices and try and do things gradually, I suppose, as well. So you're not trying to change everything all at once and do it gradually so you can stick with it and you're not going to give up or think it's too much all in one go.
Exactly. Sustainable efforts.
Yeah. And what I'd like to do is find out a little bit about the type of people you work with. So what is the typical client for you? Do you have a typical client?
Yeah, so my typical client, I usually work with women, but I do see some men as well. And usually they are people who have symptoms in the gut. If you have chronic bloating, constipation, dysbiosis, candida, you just want to work on your gut health, I help people with that. I see a lot of eczema clients. So if you have eczema or you're going through topical steroid withdrawal, I support my clients in that area as well. And then I also have clients who just want to work on their mindset or they need help with more of that like nervous system regulation. So I do some support when it comes to that area. And then general health, fatigue, people who want to work on their energy levels and hormones.
It's always really great to hear some examples of some of the transformations that people have gone through, some of the healing that you're advocating. So can you give us an idea of a kind of client case study of this type of results that you're seeing?
Yes. So I'm trying to think about a more of a recent one. Right. So I have two clients who worked with me for the past, one of them just started and they have severe eczema. They were on all kinds of medications to try and manage their skin condition. They weren't seeing results. And when they came to me, I was able to identify that they had a lot of high cortisol in their body from stress from their school. And she also had dysbiosis in her body. In particular, she had a lot of fungal overgrowth. So since starting my protocol, which involved the diet and supplements to target her root causes, she started seeing massive skin healing within just 3 weeks of starting her protocol. So I'm really proud of her. It's amazing what your body can do when you give it the right tools. And while, 3 weeks sounds really fast, I'm not saying everybody will start healing in 3 weeks, but it definitely is possible when you just give your body what it needs. And then I have other clients who need more time. So my other client started seeing results maybe 4 or 5 months into her protocol. And what we did for her was found her root causes. She also had dysbiosis going on. She had a lot of stress as well. Stress is very common, as you can see here. And what we also figured out too was the water that she was using in her home was actually causing her flares to not heal. So that was something we discovered later on, that she had to actually change her water filter. And then she started seeing amazing healing after doing that. Those are some examples.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I'm intrigued by the water side of it. What was it about the water that was preventing
So
healing?
where she lives is hard water. And so the minerals in the hard water doesn't do well with skin. It can actually cause it to be more inflamed. And so when she switched her water filter to filter out some of the hard minerals, it helped a lot with the inflammation she was experiencing.
So what I'd like to find out is, I know you've got some fantastic resources on your website and you've got some free ebooks and things as well, which you give away. So if somebody wanted to find out a little bit more about you or come to you to work, where's the best place to find you?
I'm the most active on Instagram. So if you want to connect with me there and we can become friends, then you can follow me on Instagram. My Instagram is at juliachen.rd. And then I post a lot of content there as well for people who need more help with all the things that we talked about today on the podcast. Yeah, that's basically my main platform that I'm on. And then I also make YouTube videos and then I have a podcast as well. So you can also find me there.
I'll put all the links in the description as well, so anyone will be able to find you easily enough. Can you name a book that's had the biggest impact on you? And I say a book, it could be a podcast or anything like that which had a significant impact on you.
Yes. Have you heard of Dr. Joe Dispenza? I really like his Becoming Supernatural book. He bridges the connection between neuroscience and mindset and explains exactly how to rewire your subconscious mind and shift your mindset in very practical ways. I think it's a great book.
Is there one particular mindset shift that you've experienced yourself that's been significant for you?
One particular mindset shift in my healing or overall or in general?
Whichever one comes to mind.
I think the biggest mindset shift for me is whenever there's challenges and obstacles that come into my life, whether it's health or business or anything related, I try to see it as a lesson and what I can learn from it. That's helped me a lot in approaching certain situations where I feel like I have no control. I just think of it as like, okay, this is teaching me something. What do I need to learn from it? And how can I be better?
Yeah, it's a great lesson to learn. And next one is around one daily habit that keeps you in the right mindset.
Ooh, I would say my short meditations I do in the morning. There is an app that I like to use. I mean, there's tons of meditation apps, but my favorite one is called Activations. It used to be called Superhuman, but now it's called Activations. And I really enjoy doing their meditations in the morning. They have really nice inspirational ones that kind of just gets me motivated through the day. So that's kind of my practice in the mornings and evenings too.
And I know you said you do journaling as well. So do you have any other things that you do on a regular basis to help with your mindset?
Yeah, the other thing I do is I actually talk to myself sometimes. I know it sounds silly, but I call them pep talks. So when I'm having a hard day where I feel like things aren't going the way that I want it to go, or I'm having a stressful day with work, I just remind myself, hey, Julia, you're doing great. You're fine. It's fine to feel the way that you feel. If you feel frustrated, it's normal to have these emotions. You'll be okay. You're doing great.
What is the biggest lesson that you learned in life or business that you wish you'd learned sooner?
Ooh, that's a hard one. Biggest lesson.
I think you've kind of said a few already. You've mentioned about how you changed your mindset to actually being a victim, to seeing you can take control of your eczema and you're going to take control of your healing. So I think that's certainly one of the big lessons that you've spoken about already. So I think you've scattered a few out throughout this podcast already.
I'm seeing the word trust. Trust yourself or trust myself. And that's the biggest lesson I've learned in my healing and my business is trust. It's hard sometimes because when things aren't going the right way that I want it to go, it's hard to trust. But every time that I just leaned into that, always the best results from there.
And I think it's more experience you get where you do trust yourself and you see that actually what you've done is correct and it's playing out well. You start to build that trust in yourself anyway, and it's just a bit of a cyclical process. The more you trust yourself, the more you see it pays off, and then the more you give yourself permission to trust yourself. Yeah, again, I think it's a great lesson to learn.
Yes.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you very much for joining me today. If there was one thing you'd like to leave the audience with before we wrap up the show, what would it be?
I would say keep going and don't give up in whatever you're trying to achieve, whether it's your healing, your health, your business, success. A lot of that takes consistency and hard work. But at the same time, don't burn yourself out because we don't want that. We talked a lot about that today. So keep going, but don't work too hard.
Amazing. So to everyone who's listening, if you found value in the conversation, take a moment to share it with someone who needs to hear it. Julia, thank you so much for your time, all of your wisdom, and all of the tips and tricks you've given us throughout the show. So thank you for being with us.
Thank you so much for having me.